Hello there, it's me, Peter, your favorite model YouTuber. That is not a choice. 2 weeks ago, it was my birthday. I turned 18 and alongside adult responsibilities, I also got this model. This is the 1 to 35th scale T-72M2 Moderna from Amusing Hobby. Now this is my dream model and I'm really happy that I got it as a gift, so I didn't have to spend a lot of money on it because 35th scale models are expensive. Regardless, this is an amazing model and I'm really excited to share with you how I built it and paint it. So let's get right into building it. Now, looking at the extra instructions, they are quite long and complicated, which is kind of scary for me as a 72nd scale modeler, but I think we can somehow manage. So, let's get right into it. First surprise of the video, I got Tamiya cement, which is something I've been told to do for a very long time, but I've not done it yet, but now I have, and I must say it's a really a good glue, and when somebody tells you to get it instead of the rival one, do it. Seriously, this one is way better, the bonds are way stronger, it's nicer, but it smells more. Anyway, I cut the pieces out of the sprue using sharp side cutters, and I glue them onto the model using this glue. All of the pieces go together very nicely, you just have to clean them up, you know, so they don't have any sprue gates on them, because that will destroy the look of the model. For the wheels, there was a lot of them, and they were made out of 3 parts, which is one more that I am used to. So this was quite tedious and annoying, because I had to cut the wheel out, clean the wheel, sand the wheel, glue the wheel, cut the wheel, sand the wheel, glue the wheel, cut the wheel, sand the wheel, glue the wheel, and on and on and on, but after an hour or so I had it done. The sprockets were made out of 3 parts as well, or 4 parts. They went together very nicely, and the sprue gates weren't between the teeth, so that's always a plus. Everything had handy dandy pins, and everything went together very nicely so far, so I am really pleased with this model. You're careful enough to not get the glue inside of the pin. You can keep this removable. I also noticed an amazing detail. The sprocket had a serial number molded onto it, and so did all of the track links, which is quite an amazing detail because you will never notice it, but I found it so cool. Anyway, the swing arms were done very nicely as well. They had a square pin on the end, so they would fit precisely how they're supposed to. They went throughout the whole hole onto the other side where there was a pin that held them in place. Anyway, after all of this was done, it was time for the tracks. Now the tracks are just really scary for me because there is so many of them. I mean, you have one link and then you have to do 2 pins for each link, and you need to do 95 links a side. However, all the pins are on a sprue that's perfectly that makes them perfectly far apart from each other, that you can just slide them in to the tracks, and you get this handy dandy jig that you can put the tracks on. So basically what you do is you put, I think, 5 or 8 links onto the jig, and then you just slide the entire sprue of the pins inside, and it fits perfectly, and that made it so much easier than if I had to like cut the pins or something. So I was really happy with this. And you get a jig for each track sprue, which means you get like 8 or 9 jigs, I don't remember, but you can glue all of them together because they have pins for gluing together, and you can make a long run of them, of the track, just on one very long jig. And this way, if you do two of these jigs, you have one side, or well, one entire jig and then a half of it, and then you get 96 links, I think, if I remember correctly. Which means you can either remove one or just forget about that one, and you get perfect run of tracks. And here you can see them put onto the model. They're workable, they are pretty loose, I guess, which isn't the best thing, but I am pretty pleased with how they look. You just have to be careful with them because some of the pins fall out. Now it's time for the upper hull. The upper plate needed some scraping because of the ERA. This was annoying because I don't have a chisel, only a scalpel. But I got it done at the end, and I just glued the ERA on. Now, I bought this ammo by MiG glue for PE and clear parts because I wanted to try it out, and I've heard people always praising ammo, so I thought, oh, it's probably pretty good. And I mean, it's a nice glue. It creates a great bond once it dries. The problem I have with it is that it takes a while to dry, so like when you're trying to assemble a PE part, you're still better off with you know, super glue because it dries almost instantly. Well, this takes a minute about, but once it dries, the finish, well, the remaining glue is basically invisible, and the bond is very, very strong. So I used it on the PE on this model. You get PE grills, those look really, really nice. Now the turret was basically the same ordeal, everything fit together very nicely, it was very fun to assemble. The ERA had a bit of gapage on the front ERA, but I do kinda blame that on myself and not cleaning it properly, but I just filled it up with a filler and it kind of looks better. The autocannons are positionable, which is pretty cool. I made them just stand up so they're visible. Anyway, I don't want to bore you with the entire assembly because, you know, everything went together perfectly and it's just cutting and gluing. So we're gonna start painting. And there is something very interesting about today's painting part because, well, I've got an airbrush. So yeah, I got an airbrush. This is quite a new thing for me. I've never airbrushed a model before, so I didn't know any ratios, any thinning techniques or anything. So this was kind of not the best idea to test everything over here, but you know, I diluted the color with water, and then I added thinner because I thought it wasn't thin enough, and honestly, you should just thin with the thinner. The water makes the color, as you can see, very watery. And I might have over-thinned it, so what I did was I thinned it, it was too thin. I thickened it, it was too thick, so I thinned it again. And once I got the right ratio, I started painting the model. I really can't tell you what the ratio is. I was just experimenting. I don't know why I decided to paint this model as first, but I primed the entirety of the model in black. And then I mixed together some green and I started painting that, and again it was too thick, so I thinned it, it was too thin, I thickened it, and at the end I got the right ratio and got the entire model painted in a nice, beautiful green color. I didn't post shade this one because you know, it was my first time spraying the model in the first place, but at the end you can see me post shading a model in the next video. because I've already painted another one, and I must say I'm really enjoying this paintbrush. I mean, I was kind of skeptical about getting a paintbrush because I thought it would be too messy, or I would need to buy entire assortment of colors, but no, these are the same vehicle colors I've been using for um, my paintbrushes, and I am still using for paintbrushes. I mean, you can't do everything with the airbrush, and that's really nice because I can just use my old colors, and as you can see, the finish is beautifully smooth. It went on in basically one layer, then I just started painting all of the other details with a paintbrush, and I also given the model a dry brush. And savor this moment because this is probably the last one I'm putting a dry brush onto a model. Side skirts were painting with gray because, you know, they should be rubbery. I could have just painted them green because some vehicles do have them green, but you know, I think the change of colors looks really nice. The wheels, also the rubber was painted with German grey, although it was already black since I primed it black, but you know, the green overspilled onto it, so I painted it with the German grey. This was considerably more comfortable than in 72nd scale. I also painted the log grey, you'll see later why. And the tracks were also primed in black, and then I just applied very thin coat of brown. I kind of stippled it on to create a random effect, and this created a really nice rusty color. I really like that, and I mean, I've been using that for the longest time. And then I dry brushed brown and buff onto the log, which created a very loggy color, because you know, when you have an old wood, it's kind of grayish because of all the moisture and how old it is, and this created a nice effect. And also, since I tried not to paint over the holders for the wood, it kind of created the effect that it got scraped up where the holders hold it, you know. And you could do this with a brush, you know, with a lot of strokes, but a dry brush kind of does it quicker. Then I applied the decals. They're very minimalistic, only Slovak emblems, not Slovak insignia. I think that's because of that one time it had emblems, not insignia, this vehicle. And then I started adding brown wash onto the vehicle. Now this isn't a brown wash for military vehicles, it's a brown wash for minis. And you can see that because it kinda dries into a hard to see finish. But then again, it's not that important to blend it because it kinda blends itself. But I will definitely get more normal washes later on. I also added dark grey wash over the engine deck and exhaust, and I also added it all over the fuel tanks, mainly around the fuel caps, just to create this dirty effect. I started chipping the model. I chipped it with silver first, and then I chipped all of the rivets with very light gray. Because looking at references, they would be chipped to silver, but silver isn't really realistic in such a small scale. So I used light gray, and I used silver on bigger areas and bigger chips that weren't just the rivets, because all of the rivets just go um, just go gray. And then using very dark and deep green, I made some chips as well. Again, using references. I had references of specifically Slovak T-72s, so I knew how it should look. And I'm really proud of the result. That's why I decided not to dirty the model much at all. And then I started painting the dust cover because, you know, you could just dry brush it, but I decided to try and painted. So as you could see, I painted it with a dark brown, and then using progressively lighter and lighter browns, I painted those towards the edges to create a highlighted effect. Now this is a medium light brown, I guess, the medium shade, and this one goes basically all over the mantlet, even though there is the base color, and then all of the lighter colors get progressively towards the edges to create a highlighted and painted effect, and this looks way better than an airbrushed finish, and it's something that puts your model on a higher level, I think. As you can see, the result looks quite nice. Then I decided to weather the model. As I said, I don't want to cover all of the chipping that I love so much, so I just decided to put a little bit of mud on the bottom of the vehicle where it would get caught up and all over the wheels, because I didn't put as much care into those. And then I started dusting the model. Now I could pre-dust it with an airbrush, but I didn't. I did on the next one, but not here. I use my old and tried method of heavily diluting deck 10 and then applying it all over the areas that I want dusted. And if you apply it nicely thin and blend it, it creates a nice looking effect. Of course, we want some streaking on the skirts, so what I did was I made a little bit of a thicker color. I applied it on the bottom of the skirts, and then with a dry brush I started smearing it up and down, and that created a nice streaking effect. You can layer this up however much you want. I didn't go too hard, I just went with like 1 or 2 layers. And that's basically it. And then the last effect was some speckling and also some brown mud all over the textured mud. Anyway, that's gonna be it for today's video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. I hope it helped you. I know the airbrushing part isn't really informative because I am the one that's learning it, but I hope that you can stick with me throughout my journey of trying to make my models better and maybe take some inspiration and some tips from my videos. Anyway, if you'd like to support me, you can do so on Patreon. I release some 3D models of vehicles there. If you would like to, you can also support me on Ko-fi. Like, comment, subscribe. I really hope you enjoyed this video yet again. So thank you for watching, and you know, Merry Christmas, and we will see each other in the next video. Goodbye.